Hi everyone. Thanks for joining me today. If you have a cup of tea or coffee, sit down and join me. I'm drinking Perfect Peach. It's actually pretty good. So if you hear noises in the background or some crashes, I do have kitties and they're at the Zoomies time this evening. So I wanted to have this just to kind of round out the sock series now that I've finished them. So let's just get into it. 2 months ago, this wasn't possible. Thousands of stitches that actually worked. Socks I wear in real life. Show you a picture of me actually wearing them so you can believe it. I'm still very much a beginner, but I'm also undeniably a knitter now. What surprised me most wasn't learning how to knit socks. It was how confident I felt right before I realized how much I still didn't know. Sock 2 made me feel like I knew what I was doing. Sock 3 showed me how much more there still was to learn. Quick note, I'm using notes for this video so I don't wander. If I don't, I'll start talking in circles and forget what I wanted to say. So let's get that out of the way. If I check here, or I do have a few notes up here. So how did I end up knitting socks? I went over this in the first video, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but when I first decided to learn how to knit, everyone told me start with a scarf. I did start with a scarf. I was bored, and honestly, it's ugly. Then I saw a sock pattern by Summerlee Knits, and I thought, that's what I want to make. I actually have the pattern here. She gives it away for free, so if anyone's interested, it's School of Socks, and this is how I actually learned to knit socks. But I didn't know socks were supposed to be hard. I didn't know how long they would take. I just knew that I wanted to knit that. So that's what I did. I didn't learn to knit fast. I repeated things. I definitely rewound videos. Sometimes something made sense one day and the next day I completely forgot it all. At the same time, I've had people tell me that they're surprised at how quickly I started knitting socks. Not because I learned fast, but because a lot of people think socks are hard. I think from what I've seen that part of that comes from how socks were traditionally taught. It seems like most people learned on double pointed needles. I don't know that for sure, but that's what it sounds like to me. So even now I have a set of double point needles. And even though I know how to knit socks, I am still way too intimidated to try those. So what's different now? There's lots of options. There's magic loop. There's little tiny circulars. And circular needles, once you're knitting in the round, you're mostly just knitting over and over and over again. The setup's actually the hardest part, not the knitting itself. So for me, I think not knowing that it was hard, and the biggest difference was I wanted to have socks as my finished object. I wanted the socks. So I stayed with it and learned it. And honestly, I didn't know any differently when I started. I didn't know that it was supposed to be hard. So a little bit about where I was at the beginning. I've been knitting for about 8 or 9 weeks now. A single sock takes me around 11 days, so a full pair takes closer to 3 weeks. And that's with a job and normal life going on. I'm not knitting all day, every day. When I first started knitting, learning felt super exciting, but it was also really intense. I was so focused on not messing anything up that if my poor husband walked into the room, I wouldn't even look up. I was afraid that if I broke concentration, I'd drop a stitch and not know how to fix it. And at that time, I did not know how to fix anything. So everything felt fragile. Um, that part's changed, but I'm still not fully multitasking. I am excited. Now I can have a show on in the background if I'm doing simple things like stockinette. If I'm doing ribbing, I do still need to pay attention. What surprised me though is yesterday I thought there was no way I could watch anything while doing ribbing. And then last night I realized while I was doing it that I was actually knitting this pattern, which I've been doing for a while, and I'm doing it. So I'm still not great at reading my stitches, but it doesn't feel as precarious as it did in the beginning. So a couple other things about the beginning. I used bamboo needles in the beginning. These little metal needles felt impossible. My stitches just slid right off and I kept dropping them. So after knitting roughly 9,000 stitches per sock, that's changed. As you can see, I am using metal needles now, and I'm not losing stitches. I'm not sure if metal needles will be my favorite long term, but being able to switch between options without feeling out of control, that feels like progress. And also, because I learned on these small, tiny little needles, that is what feels normal to me. I suspect bigger needles might actually feel harder at this point. I guess we'll see when I try to knit something else. Actually, I already have a Summerlee sweater pattern that I want to try, so I'll have to get into those. But so sock one. The first sock I knit, it wasn't about decision or analysis. I didn't film it. I wasn't even thinking about content yet. I was just trying to get through it and see if I could actually knit a sock. So sock one mostly lives here as experience, not specifics. But sock one is the reason that I started this channel. I wanted to create a community that shows how it is to be new and learning. Sock two. Going into sock two, I really thought this is going to be easy. And in some ways it was, but other parts were still hard. It's just hard in different ways. The heel and the gusset still made me slow way down. Then I got to what felt like the easy downhill part, this foot and toe, and realized that I had made a mistake. I was decreasing every row instead of every other row. So the end of the stock started to look wrong. Kind of went like this. And instead of rounding nicely around my toes, it came in out at an angle, almost like the end of my foot was square and not round. So, but I noticed it and I had to decide what to do. And at that point, I made a decision to keep going. Part of that was practical. I was leaving on a trip the next day and I really wanted to wear the socks. I'd been telling people I was making socks and I really wanted to have the finished pair. The other part was curiosity. Everyone says blocking changed things. I wanted to know if once the sock was finished and blocked, would that mistake actually matter? After blocking it, it was actually, I don't know if you can see this, but it was actually hard to tell. And on the plane, they felt great. They were comfortable. I couldn't feel anything wrong. And then even in real life at my dad's house with my shoes off, nobody noticed any problems. What they did notice was that I had knit my own socks, and that was what made me feel proud. So, sock three. Sock three is where my confidence got ahead of my preparation. I decided to try a few new things at once. I was doing stripes with color changes. I was trying jogless stripes, and I was trying to weave in my ends as I went. You can't see it here, but I've got lots of ends. And I wasn't really doing any of those things well yet, and I ended up with holes. So I went looking online for ways to avoid holes when changing colors because that seemed to be where it was. There were a lot of different methods, but One that finally clicked for me was from the Crazy Sock Lady. She's here on YouTube. She does it in a very specific order, and once I followed that, the holes went away. So her method is changing colors and knitting in the ends at the same time. She just does it in a very controlled way. Before I found that, I tried to fix the sock by putting in a lifeline after the fact. Honestly, I spent about a day and a half trying to put that lifeline in and get the stitches back where they belonged. Even doing it one stitch at a time, I missed a few. It's a hot, it's a lot harder than it looks. And at that point, I'll say it nicely, I decided to set that sock aside. Not because I couldn't fix it, but starting it over felt healthier for me and the sock. So I started a new one and decided to focus on just one thing. This time I only changed colors and knit in my ends using that one method that I learned. I'm not doing jogless stripes yet, and with only a few stripes, I'm okay with a stitch or two being slightly off. There's 3, maybe 6 stitches out of thousands, and I can definitely live with that, more than holes. What was interesting was when I realized I was a knitter, the moment that I started thinking of myself as a knitter, it didn't happen when I finished sock 2, even when I was wearing them. It happened about an inch into sock 3. That's when it really clicked. And I was knitting in front of other people, and I remember thinking, look at me sitting here knitting like I know what I'm doing. And of course, that's when it all went to heck in a handbasket. But that was the shift for me, and my confidence had finally caught up, even if my skills hadn't yet. Almost immediately after that, I realized there was still a lot more to learn. So, because this feels like the end of a chapter for me with these socks, my first socks, I wanted to share something from this video. Let me see if I can find it. So, when I was first starting, it would have meant a lot to me to have someone say, you can start here. You know, I went and did a bunch of research, but so I'm going to put together a small sock knitting starter set, just a ball of yarn and the needles, you know, that you need to try it. But if you're a beginner and that would be helpful to you, you can leave a comment and let me know. I'll pick someone and send it along. I'll also put the details and the timing for this below so it's clear, especially for anyone watching later. But sharing things like this is something that I really want to do, not just once, but, you know, as appropriate. So it'll be just a way to pass things along as I learn. Sometimes you try things and they don't work for you, but they might work for someone else. So leave a comment below and let me know, and I will figure out how to reach out to you. I have no idea how to do that, but I'll figure it out. And I will put all the information in the description below. So what am I working on next as far as knitting? I'm still going to keep knitting socks. I mean, obviously, I have these here. I'm actually really excited. This is yet another Summerly kind of 70s gym sock look. I'm knitting both, and they're the colors that she did. So I'll have a second pair in this beautiful blue and yellow. I'm excited about that. But I'm not going to film every part of every sock. I think that would get boring. This is, you know, about being new. So some of it'll just be me learning quietly while, but what I will keep sharing are the moments where something changes, when something that felt hard starts to feel easier, or just when I get stuck again and have to figure out why or how to fix it. That's the part I care about showing, because a lot of what we see online looks very polished, and that's not what learning actually feels like. So I'll show works in progress and keep you up to date. But because this is a beginner learning channel, other ideas, I took a basket weaving class recently. Actually, that's what this stuff is sitting in. I don't know if you can see it. But you can't see how pretty it is. I'll put a picture up. But it was hard, which surprised me, but I actually really loved it. And my husband was so impressed with how it turned out. He's taking another class with me this week to make a market basket. So that surprised me because he does not do crafty things at all. I probably won't film that class. It's a private class and I'm not comfortable filming in public yet. But if basket making is interesting to people, maybe I'll try a kit at home and kind of see where that goes. It's another beginner project, which is kind of the theme around here. So, and then something I'm going to start sharing next for sure is sourdough. I have baked sourdough before. I mean, didn't we all during COVID? But there's still a lot I'm learning. So I'm going to be baking with fresh milled flour. Part of the reason for that is we hear sourdough is better than regular bread, and you know, I may be gluten sensitive, who knows. But fresh milled sourdough is supposed to be even better than that. And while sourdough is where I'm starting, fresh milled flour can be used for other things too. So this won't only be that, but the long-term goal is to bake sourdough only using fresh milled flour. If you tried typing that into Google, no matter how closely you say it, it comes out as fresh milk flour every single time. But so the long-term goal is to bake using fresh milled flour. But I know I can't jump straight there because there's lots of factors involved. So I'm going to start with a white sourdough kind of as the baseline. That's my control. I'm a scientist, so that's like a science experiment. From there, I'll slowly change one thing at a time, I mean, within reason, and kind of see what happens. So I'll be sharing that process as I go, more like a bake-along, not as an expert, but just as someone learning and figuring it out. So in closing, kind of that's where I'm at right now. I'm still learning, still figuring things out. This channel is new for me too, so if the video was helpful or if you enjoyed spending time here, liking the video or subscribing really does help. It helps this channel grow and it helps me to keep showing up and making these videos. So if you want to see more thoughtful beginner moments, you can subscribe to follow along. So thank you for spending time with me, and I hope you have a great day or evening wherever you are.